Ochipili is a god associated with, among other things, homosexuality, the arts, and flowers in Aztec mythology. His name, translated directly, means flower prince. But Ochipili's association with plants goes far beyond flowers. In the 19th century, a statue of Ochipili was discovered at the base of a mountain in present-day Mexico. The statue appeared to depict the flower prince in a meditative position, his face in a state of ecstatic bliss. The statue was adorned in carvings of plants that were sacred to the Aztecs. Among these were tobacco and psilocybin mushrooms, both of which are widely used to this day. But these weren't the only psychoactive plants depicted on the statue. In fact, every plant engraved into the statue is thought to have had a spiritual context in Aztec culture. This is exactly why they made their way onto the statue in the first place. Take, for instance, Olelacqui, which contains LSA, a naturally occurring chemical relative of LSD. Morning glories, too, contain lysergic acid in its seeds, which are known to have been ground with mortar and pestle in Aztec civilization, after which the ground seeds were brewed in water, filtered, and ultimately drank, causing psychedelic visions. The Florentine Codex is a first-hand account of what was then referred to as New Spain. Its author, a Franciscan monk, described a detailed ethnography of the Aztec culture, including their history, religion, economics, society, and even ritual practices. Among these was the use of Olelacqui. It deranges one, troubles one, maddens one, makes one possessed. He who eats it, who drinks it, sees many things which greatly terrify him. He is really frightened by the poisonous serpent which he sees for that reason. Florentine Codex, Book 11. Bernardino de Sahagún. The book also makes reference to the morning glory's use as anesthesia in conjunction with tobacco. It was also taken to help determine causes of disease and illness. In fact, the Florentine Codex makes reference to nearly all of the entheogenic plants depicted on the flower prince's statue. Of psilocybin, the friar wrote, "The first thing to be eaten at the feast were small mushrooms that bring on drunkenness, hallucinations, and even lechery. They ate these before the dawn with honey. And when they began to feel the effects, they began to dance, some sang and others wept. When the drunkenness of the mushroom had passed, they spoke with one another of the visions they had seen." While not depicted on the statue of the flower prince, it is worth mentioning that the Florentine Codex estimates the use of peyote to go back to approximately 300 BC. It is now generally regarded to be closer to 1000 BC, over 3,000 years from present day. Peyote was not native to regions of Mexico in which the Aztecs lived. For this reason, it has been suggested that they received peyote by trade with other Mesoamerican people. Sahagún believed that peyote is what allowed the Aztec warriors to fight the way they did. Ochipili's statue does, however, depict Siniquichi, a plant whose name means sun opener. While relatively unknown in modern American society, Siniquichi was a go-to for Aztec shaman, producing hallucinations, most of which were auditory, and allowing them to recall far-back events, by some accounts, even prenatal events. Hochibi is said to be in The Flowery Dream, produced by Siniquichi, as depicted in the statue. This monument also depicts malanillo, a plant that has become exceedingly rare due to industrialization. As a result, not much is known about this flower, but that it was once added to hot chocolate drinks, which also frequently contain psilocybin. In addition, the plant is extremely fragrant, leading to its use as an additive to tobacco. It was used in incense and even in burial ceremonies, earning the nickname funeral tree. The final plant depicted on the statue is unknown, but is believed by some to be Salvia divinorum. Salvia rituals involve chewing a handful of salvia leaves and pressing them against your cheeks and gums so that the inside of your mouth absorbs the active chemical salvinorin A. This method of consuming salvia produces significantly different effects from smoking the concentrated plant, as is seen in countless YouTube videos. This method has been used by the Mazatec tribes of Oaxaca, Mexico for centuries when psilocybin was not available. The practice is thought to have developed from the Aztecs. When the conquistadors defeated the Aztecs in 1521, they put a stop to the use of all non-alcohol intoxicants. They associated the use of entheogens with witchcraft and even cannibalism, and wanted to spread Christianity to these people that they believed to be savages. As a result, the use of datura, an intoxicant at high doses and a deliriant at lower doses, as well as psilocybin, peyote, and the like, needed to go underground, and remained so for centuries. Their religion also was banned and systematically replaced with Christianity, with the threat of extermination. Their religion too went underground and has manifested itself in a variety of modern traditions, from curanderismo to Santeria. And the tradition of these sacramental plants did not die either. During the American Civil War, peyote use began spreading north from Mexico. Indian prophets such as Quanah Parker and John Wilson carried a Christianized version of the ancient ritual as far north as Canada, spreading the message of peyote to more than 50 American tribes, including the Cheyenne, Shawnee, Blackfoot, and Sioux. Their teachings blended traditional peyote chants and meditation with prayers and belief in Jesus. In 1918, a group of peyotists formed the Native American Church to preserve peyote rituals and provide for continued sacramental use of the plant. Still, non-believers fought back. Eventually, 11 states sought to ban religious use of peyote, but federal courts have affirmed the right to sacramental use by Native American members of the 250,000-plus member church in more than one court decision. Back in Mexico, shaman kept psilocybin and salvia rituals alive in secrecy. So secret, in fact, that many academics, such as botanist William Safford, believed the mushrooms referenced in the Florentine Codex to be an erroneous description of peyote. His colleague, Dr. Blas Pablo Rico, disagreed. He was convinced that not only did these mushrooms exist, but that they were still in usage today. An Australian anthropologist who had spent some time in Mexico heard about their dispute and confirmed that he had, in fact, witnessed one of these mushroom ceremonies. Eventually, scientists from Harvard collected these species and determined that they were what had been described in the Florentine Codex. They kept specimens of the mushrooms in the Harvard herbarium. But the Great Depression and World War II pretty much put a stop to their research until the 1950s, when R. Gordon Wasson, vice president of J.P. Morgan, an amateur mycologist, or mushroom collector for those of you who are not in the know, caught word of this sacramental mushroom. Intrigued, he and his wife headed for Mexico, where they observed an all-night mushroom ceremony under the guidance of shaman Don Aurelio. Wasson would come back to Mexico several times, meeting the Mazatec curandera Maria Sabina. Maria is revered to this day as a sacred figure in her native land. Maria Sabina oversaw countless mushroom ceremonies amongst her native people. When R. Gordon Wasson came to visit her on June 19, 1955, Sabina provided Wasson with a sample of psilocybin. Wasson ultimately went to Swiss research chemist and father of LSD, Albert Hofmann, for help in isolating the compound that made these mushrooms psychoactive. Hofmann isolated psilocybin and psilocin, accompanying Wasson on a trip to Mexico to provide the extract in pill form to Maria Sabina to see if she found a difference. Perhaps there was some minor alkaloid that they had missed. Sabina was pleased with the result of the pills, saying they would allow her to administer the medicine when no mushrooms were available. Wasson went on to publish the first article about psilocybin in popular culture in Life magazine in 1957. Mushrooms became more and more well-known throughout the 1960s, attracting the likes of Keith Richards, Mick Jagger, John Lennon, and Bob Dylan to the Sierra Mazateca. Eventually, Mexican authorities questioned Maria Sabina, who they believed was selling drugs to tourists. This greatly altered the social dynamic of the Mazatec mushroom ceremony and almost led to its demise. Maria Sabina was ostracized by her community for allowing so many Westerners to partake in the ritual. Her house was burned to the ground. Sabina died in 1985, believing that the sacred ritual that made her famous had become desecrated by its spread into Western culture. Before Wasson, nobody took the children simply to find God. They were always taken to cure the sick. But the importance of her teachings cannot be understated. Modern medicine is now undergoing a psychedelic renaissance, with those afflicted by PTSD, depression, and anxiety, especially concerning end of life, seeing unprecedented improvement with psilocybin mushrooms. Maria's holy children are again being used to heal the sick. One can only hope that, in time, the stigma that has surrounded entheogens, since Westerners first rediscovered them in the 1500s, will ultimately be lifted.